Hello, my name is Jonathan Solon. Welcome to the Nevins Train. Today, our episode focuses on two of the Nevins family daughters. One, Eulalia Agnes Nevins, the other, Irmagene Nevins Holloway. One would dedicate her life almost completely to her family and community. The other would dedicate her life to being a professional woman of integrity and character in the 1930s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. So much so that her retirement speech would be recorded in the United States of America Congressional Record. Really? Hop on board the Soul Train. Well, I've been looking forward to doing this episode to honor these two amazing women, primarily because they chose a life that did not include children. Aunt Eulalia would not marry and would not have children. And while my great aunt Irma would marry later in life, she would also have no children. So it is with a great amount of pride that we do this episode honoring these amazing women. So let's start with Eulalia, who would have been born in 1882 in Arkansas, just as Newt and Maddie Nevins would be making their way west to Kansas. So Eulalia was the oldest of the 8 children, and my grandmother, Betty Solon, would be the baby. Eulalia was 22 years older than my grandmother. And so she was certainly a second mother and mentor in so many things for my grandmother growing up. So Eulalia's earliest memories would have been trying to survive on the Kansas plains. She was 4 years old when her brother Clarence was born, and her notes form the Nevins history that would be written down by my aunt Irma in 1971. Just a couple of things to clue you in on. Clarence was born December 9th, 1886. Grandmother Griffith was the midwife. Eulalia tells the story of Miss Finley, who brought an apple to her and Clarence. Eulalia was quite disturbed when Mother ate Clarence's apple. In 1888, Erdel was born. Erdel would have been Eulalia's first sister. Then measles swept through the community. Eulalia was sick. Clarence was sick. And Erdel would pass away from measles. It's hard to imagine how that can impact a young child when the little sister that they cared for and held and fed and cleaned would have passed away. Then Fred Rice was born in 1990, and she would have helped raise him and feed him and change him and do all of the things necessary to care for her younger brother. And of course, this is the next tragedy when he would fall out of a high chair, hit his head, and pass away. You can't imagine the feelings of guilt, unwarranted, and loss that would have really been formative memories for Eulalia during that time. For Eulalia, the decade of the 1890s were terrible years. There was drought, grasshoppers ate the crops, there was a prairie fire, and she was responsible for raising the children. After little Freddie passed away in 1893, Arthur was born in 1895, and Ralph was born in 1896. And she stayed home as a 15 through 17-year-old, taking care of the children while her mother was teaching. After years of taking care of her younger siblings, Eulalia was able to focus on herself with the encouragement of her parents and went to school In 1899, she went to the Kansas State Normal School in Emporia to get her teaching certificates. She continued with her studies, and in 1906, Eulalia obtained a teaching job in Dodge City. In 1910, just 4 years later, she was elected county superintendent of the schools on the Democratic ticket. And that job required that she live in Dodge City, and she held that job for 3 terms. After 3 terms, Eulalia would retire as county superintendent in 1918, and she would actually take college credits, transfer them to Baker University, go to Baker, and get a graduate degree. She would come back to Dodge City and get a teaching job. And here's an amazing photo of her from the yearbook that I found on Ancestry.com of Eulalia Nevins in the high school yearbook. In 1923, Maddie Nevins, Eulalia's mom, would pass away suddenly. Here is a photo of Eulalia with her 2 sisters and sister-in-law on the occasion of the funeral. If Eulalia had thought about the possibility of having a life of her own, it ended when her mother passed away, and she knew her role would be to continue to dedicate to her father and make a home for her other younger siblings. So the death of their mother, Maddie Nevins, was a pivotal event for these 2 sisters. For Eulalia, she was now the head of the Nevins household, and she would help her father at the hardware store and ensure that they had a home there in Dodge City where everyone was welcome. For my Aunt Irmagene, she would head east to begin her professional career as a woman in a man's world. I'd like to play for you this amazing interview done by my cousin, Kathy Nevins, who sat down with Aunt Irma to talk about her amazing career. Listen to this.
To begin with, as you know, I was in a family that believed that if a boy received something, a girl received it. There was no distinction between boys and girls in my family.
Isn't that unusual?
It's very unusual, and to me, it's a very satisfying thing. And you know, we come from our desire for women being recognized as a part of our heritage. Mm-hmm. And on this Township 28 that I'm showing you, you see my mother owned this section, my father owned this section, my mother owned this section, and my father owned this section. So you have that. Each one owned 3/4 of a section. Now that's a bit unusual for this particular time. And if you look at this chart, you will find there's no other family that has that. Mm-hmm. So you and I come with our desire for full equality as a part of our inheritance. I inherited from my parents. You inherited from your great-grandparents and from my generation.
This full interview and conversation between Kathy and her great aunt Irma is on the drive, and it's over 2 hours, but an incredible study of a unique career for a woman that spans the 1930s all the way to the 60s. Just a few highlights. She went to Columbia University and got a doctorate from New York University in 1941. She would go on to become the National Director of Accident Prevention for the American Red Cross during World War II. She would go on to serve in the federal government and have an amazing career offer across so many disciplines, primarily in the areas of safety. She would become dear friends with Bob Dole. And she knew him as her favorite Republican, and Bob Dole would refer to her as his favorite Democrat. Quite a number of excellent stories in that recording. I encourage you to listen to. Irmagene would marry Hubert Holloway in 1948, a very kind man, and they enjoyed 13 years of marriage before he passed away very suddenly in 1961. Within 3 weeks, her dear sister, Aunt Eulalia, would also pass away, making it for a very difficult month. I am a bit frustrated because I haven't been able to find many good pictures of my Aunt Irma. I know they exist, probably at my folks' house. I just don't have them at hand to include in this video. I'm hoping you can also share with me some of your favorite photos of Aunt Irma. Um, Aunt Irma retired in 1969. And at that time, she was working with the Department of Health and Education and Welfare. And she gave a farewell retirement speech. And it was so well received that it was reprinted as part of the congressional record. And I'm going to post it here for you to take a look at. There were after Aunt Irma retired, she remained in Washington, D.C., and many hilarious stories of going to visit Aunt Irma and her many collection of items from her travels. And we haven't even talked about her travels. Um, I am proud to have in my possession her Bible, which she carried with her wherever she went. And I do have a few photos with inscriptions showing each of the countries that she visited and a few select photos that were very dear to her. After many years of retirement in Washington, D.C., she decided it was time to head back to Dodge City and asked if I would help her. So I had the honor of helping my Aunt Irma navigate the airports and fly back to Dodge City. It was in the early 80s and I was a young driver, but I had a few days in Dodge City and she was delighted to show me around. My grandmother, Betty Solden, was very jealous and insisted that she should have had her own grandchildren if she wanted help like this. I was in Dodge City with her and slept on the couch, and one memory sticks out in my mind. I had changed and my jeans were thrown over the couch and my shirt and goodness knows what other underclothes were hanging around. And her friend came over and Aunt Irma said to her, "Isn't it nice to see a man's clothes thrown around?" I'll never forget that. Aunt Irma lived to be 101 years old. My mom and dad traveled to Dodge City for her 101st birthday. At this point, Aunt Irma was having good days and bad days, but they had a birthday card of the 101 Dalmatians, and they were repeating to Aunt Irma 101 several times. And as though she had heard it for the first time, she said, oh, 101. I made it. I made it. And she put her thumbs under her arms and said, "Good for me. Good for me." Well, good for your big sister, Aunt Eulalia. And good for you, Aunt Irma. Until next time on the Soul Train. How do we top that? I don't know. We'll find out.